about the VOD and the silver screen. Kevin and Tom and Joe know all there is to know, from masterpieces to deep fried tacos. And if the movie sucks, you might hear them say, there's no telling where the guys will take you. Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, cause we already warned you. Better watch out, it's gonna ruin the plot. Real spoilers. Real spoilers. Real spoilers.
Broadcasting from the lush but not lavish studios located in the basement of the O'Keefe Institute for Advanced Film Snarkitude, this is Real Spoilers, episode 813, Sustenance.
Oh, it's close.
I like how Tom just gave up. He doesn't go undisclosed location. We're
Yeah,
not
I'm just
there.
like,
He's like,
it's, I
we're
don't
there.
wanna- it's just
Whatever.
like, okay, yeah. Like, if you're on the YouTube, you'll
This
know
is
I'm a
this
liar.
is
And-
the second undisclosed location.
Yeah. So
And no one will say anything about it, so it will just be like theater of
they're
the
like
mind.
fast forwarding through the first like 4 minutes of the show every
That's
week.
true. Fair.
And if they're lucky, it's just the first 4 minutes. of the
Yeah,
show.
right.
Yeah, no.
So,
kidding.
I guess let's go around the table that we don't have, and everyone can introduce
Thank
themselves.
you.
This
It's
is
me,
Joe.
Matt.
No, what are you doing? What is happening? No,
He put himself
I'm
in
the leadoff
rotation.
man. I'm the leadoff man.
Oh.
Not
This is
anymore,
Joe.
buddy.
Matt, I'd like to acquiesce to you.
It's me, Matt.
And this
And
is Kevin.
Tom. There we go.
Wait, does this mean that Matt has now become a series regular?
I don't know.
Well, do you know how many times Tom has put him in and out of the rotation? Because I'll pause and then Tom will look at me and I'll be like, well, wait, last time Matt was in the rotation. What?
I don't remember. Whatever.
I'm gonna be like, you ever? There's like a famous sitcom character, and then people say like, he's only in like 13 episodes.
Like Cousin Ralphie
Oh,
or
really?
something?
I don't think
Pinky
he's famous.
Tuscadero, only in 12 episodes. I don't
Chevy Chase, one season. That's it.
What?
See?
He was in more than one season of Community.
Oh, I meant Saturday Night Live.
Oh, okay.
Beetlejuice
Yeah.
is only in
Well, he
Michael
said
Keaton,
sitcom.
3 minutes of screen time.
SNL.
That's true. That's
SNL
fair.
is not a
in
sitcom.
Beetlejuice.
SNL is not
Yeah.
a sitcom.
So, anyway, before we get into the movie, proper shameless plugs. Don't forget we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, TuneIn, wherever you find a podcast. You can find us. While you're there, be sure and follow us so you never miss an episode. Maybe leave us a review. That's super helpful and greatly appreciated. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Real Spoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group. It's called the League of Show Sharers because we are hoping you will share an episode. People who were kind enough to share an episode last week include Librarian Cynthia, Tammy Lynn Powers Betts, Chris Falls, Lane Levanway, Gabriel Lugo, Richard Krotzer, Michael Tonkovic, Ron Johnson, Travis Tewitt, Julianne Jordan, Tom Dowdy, Chris Magic Man, Phil Timon, Aaron Kyleman, Taylor Ward, Heather Sachs, Edit Photo Gamer, David Rojas, In Session Film, Mike and Oscar, Nostalgia Cast, Ronnie Castle, Dissect That Film, Colby Mack, Geek to Me Radio, Matt Naglia, Ryan Terry, and Binge Movies. So thank you very much for.
Hey, is that Aaron one? That's Aaron one's a new one.
I
isn't
believe so.
It? Hey,
Who
welcome-
is it?
Well, Aaron Coleman.
Kyleman.
Oh,
think it's how you say
Kylan,
it,
welcome
yeah.
to the show, bud.
So
welcome. Tom, do you have a
that-
song
that was-
prepared? You're
that
the
was
next-
Dan's job.
It's so you know what I should now that I randomly see Dan on Friday nights at both of our
Have
daughters'
record all
volleyball,
the
I should have him
names.
record like,
Yeah, like-
hey, can you just sing into this mic real
we
quick?
have a new show share. Here's his name. Sing into my phone.
Oh,
He'd be like, I thought I quit that goddamn show.
you can try.
It's like the mafia, right? Like they.
Yeah,
Pull
right,
you
right,
back
right.
in
We
when
don't,
you're
we
in.
don't, we don't talk about
Yeah.
it.
So where was I at? Oh yeah, and anyway, don't forget we have a Patreon, patreon.com/real spoilers, where for $5 a month you get all sorts of bonus content, and we like you extra. And then finally, don't forget you can watch all of these over at YouTube. So anyway, there's all that. Let's dig in to the substance.
So, has anybody seen, besides Matt? I know Matt has seen it. Revenge.
I didn't get it. I started it late at night, fell asleep, and not because it was bad, but I just didn't get a chance to
Okay.
get through it.
Has anybody seen Society besides Matt?
Yes.
No.
True.
Right. Matt, you can just say, I default. I know you've seen these movies.
Yeah.
Does anybody know who Screaming Mad George is?
I feel like you're just talking about movies that people sell on VHS out of the trunk of their car. Is this what we're doing?
No,
At
no.
horror
There's
conventions.
there like this. this
He gets to
movie
the end,
may-
he goes, and none of them are real. I made it all up.
This is probably the wildest movie I've ever seen in a theater. On first run, I've seen things in theaters like Toxic Avenger and stuff like that, like revival screenings.
Tom, do you think this is worse than Antichrist in a theater?
Oh no.
I'm just curious for your opinion. Like, I know you saw that one.
Antichrist was just like, I remember Blake still quotes to me he was at the screening when we got done with the screening of that film. I was like, can you go to hell for seeing a movie?
Jeez.
And like,
Antichrist felt
come
like
blood without telling me you've never come blood.
Antichrist.
It's not so bad.
Did feel kind of not as there aren't makeup. There aren't as wild makeup effects in Antichrist. Like that was body horror different.
The substance is I feel like you're like smiling gross.
Yes.
Like, ooh, that's gross. Antichrist
like the substance was like I was able
gross.
to eat my popcorn while I watched the movie.
Well, because
the
the
woman
really
next
bad
to me.
stuff you should have been done by with your popcorn by then.
That's true.
Like,
Yeah.
Done. Excuse me. Done with my popcorn. 2 to 3, or at least 2 refills per trip. I don't ever
No,
get
the only
done.
That's
time
a
you
with
leave
lot
a
of
movie is to
popcorn.
pee. I think we all know that. You don't.
No, I don't leave a
would
movie.
never
They
leave
bring
a
it to you
movie.
in your
Kevin,
seat.
yeah,
There's-
at the
there's
draft.
no reason
at
to
the
ever
draft
get up.
house, if you push your
Oh,
button,
I
they
wouldn't
will
know
bring
that
you a
because when I
catheter.
go there, they
There
don't show
it is.
movies.
Very
Yeah,
good.
no, you just press the button and they bring you more
Huh.
popcorn.
If
so
I had
you're
pressed a
never
button,
actually
would they
done.
have brought me a showing of the film I bought a ticket for?
maybe.
No, the button is locked behind doors. You did not get into it.
Apparently. So, like, because this was like almost like it was borderline a cartoon. You know what I mean?
When it gets to
where Antichrist was like super grounded in reality and like very just bleak. And so when
Yes.
you got to those parts, it took a bleak world and somehow made it bleaker, like the anti-Mary Tyler Moore show.
It starts with a child dying.
Yes.
And goes down.
Yeah, and gets sadder, right? Yeah. And so like this, like I said, this is practically a musical compared to the Antichrist.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I was just curious because I've actually never seen that movie, but you guys always talk
Yeah.
about it, so I wasn't sure. But I know it's bad, and I know things that are in it from hearing you talk.
I wouldn't
about
say
it.
Antichrist is
but
bad. It's tough. It's a really tough watch, but it is not a like a bad
no,
movie.
like the bad, like no. I just mean like I know that it's hard
Yes.
to watch. Like I know that there's some bad
Right,
stuff in
yes.
it, like that you wouldn't want
Yeah.
to see, is what I mean. But I loved this movie. I thought this was great.
It's a great time. And
Yes,
look, I've probably done it on here. I'm a person who's like, it doesn't matter where I see a movie, if it's in the theater or at home, I'm never really like bummed I missed something in the theater. It's a story, right? I can take it in. However, I guess this is the one. This is the one I would say you should see this in the theater. You should make sure it's a loud theater.
The crowd reactions.
It's
I mean,
fun. It's really
it really
fun.
is fun to watch a movie like this with a crowd.
Not my
Tom
crowd.
has-
I had a guy
Yeah.
answer
Oh.
a phone call
Shut up.
on speaker.
No.
This, Tom, I know you'll never do it out of spite, but this is why you go to Alamo. They will kick you out if you do that. Like, there's no
They'll
second
kill you.
chances. They just will take you out back. But
Yeah.
like, this is why, because we've had so many of these experiences at AMC, especially.
Well, and even
where-
Ronnie's was just as bad.
Yeah, they'll
Like,
answer
yeah.
phones. I looked down in the theater in AMC when I went one time, and a guy was playing one of those mobile games where you just like farm things,
On
and the
full
whole
brightness.
movie was checking on full brightness, checking to see his farm of like wood and
I mean,
steel and rock, and it's just like
Was he playing
That's what-
Warcraft? Was he playing
Crowd
Warcraft?
yeah,
time,
too
something
on his
like
phone?
that, yeah. And that's why one of the reasons why I stopped going, because people will do that crap and no one does anything about it.
Well, it's because you got a bunch of snot-nosed kids. That's not fair. You got a bunch of teenagers working at a theater,
Right.
and the Draft House is similar. But as soon as there's a no. It's funny.
There's
I think
an
at the beginning
expectation.
there is an expectation. It's the implication of being kicked out.
I think you do get one warning, but like after the one, it's not like a fake warning. It's a warning, and then if you do one more thing, no excuses, you're out. Like, it's just.
I also think
Did you-
Alamo Draft House, it kind of self-selects for film nerds who are less likely to
Yeah,
do that sort
Absolutely,
of stuff.
it does.
Yeah, I've never
100%.
seen anyone kicked out. Have you guys?
I
mean,
have.
You go there and you're.
What about
I
not
got someone
allowed
kicked out.
in? Does that count?
Yes. Oh,
Yeah,
so, okay.
Now you know
Tom,
what?
that's so
Maybe
funny
that-
because it happened when I was leaving the substance. Like
What's
there was a group of they were not old enough to be there, and they were trying to buy tickets, and the guy's like, "Do you have your IDs?" And they were like, "No." And he was like, "Right, you have to be 21 or however."
Tom looks so
I'm so
youthful
young
now that he's
looking.
in shape. And,
Yes.
and they didn't let him
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, Tom was wearing a wig that
Yeah.
day and decided.
I was
But
wearing my
that was the first
t-shirt
time
that
I was
said
like,
"brat" on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was a hot brat summer when you tried to
He
go.
had
That's
his- he
right.
had
It's always a
juicy,
hot,
like,
hot brat summer when I'm walking around, even if it's autumn.
Brought him.
But it's funny because in the trailers for this, it basically just looks like a kind of a Freaky Friday, commenting on the fragility of beauty in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So the crowd that was there
Did not know?
had no idea.
Oh,
Right. And
'cause,
I
the
knew
trailers don't really give it
they don't
away,
tell you
right? Like
anything.
they don't. I love that the trailers don't make it look like a horror show and like allude to how creepy it gets. It
Yeah.
just looks suspenseful
Well,
and thrilling.
it looks like Demi Moore is an aging Hollywood starlet who takes a drug and makes her look like she did when she was youthful. They don't
Right.
tell you where
It's coming
it's
from.
coming from or what's going to
And-
happen.
And you know what? I did see the trailer once because it was before a showing, and so what was it before the horror one? The whatever that thing I've already forgotten about. The remake of that movie we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Don't
What was
speak
that
and
called?
Speak
talk.
no evil.
Don't.
Oh, speak no
yeah,
evil.
speak no evil.
Don't
yeah.
go talking.
So it was before that, and I go, this looks. I was like, this looks like a blast. But the thing was, I left that trailer going, do they live simultaneously? Do they like? I had no idea. You know, what I mean, the trailer didn't give
Yeah.
away the exact plot of the movie, but it gave you kind of an idea of what people are willing to do to have youth and beauty, and they set you up, but they don't ever spoon feed you the whole plot, which is great.
No.
Do you think? And how many people just went to see Demi Moore
Yeah,
back?
That's it.
Oh, you see more than
she's
her
another
back.
one. Yeah, which I got to tell you,
That's true.
I did want to. I'm glad you brought that up. Is because I'm glad this was directed by a woman. Because if this was directed
Oh,
by a
yeah.
man, this is a very different conversation about the shots in this
Well,
movie.
if this was directed
was
by a
thinking-
man, I think the shots in this movie would be very different, right? Like, because
Oh.
my wife went with me to see this, and this is not her kind of movie, and shocking, I know, and and we were both commenting on how like I've never seen a movie with so much nudity that was so not sexy, and like not
Sexy.
even
They
like
didn't
they filmed it in
glamorize
a way
it.
to make it gross. It was just very mad. It was just clinical. It was just like she happens to be
Right.
naked in the scene. It's not
Yes.
designed to turn
Yeah.
you on.
No,
Agreed.
well, I think
It-
the dancing stuff I think is.
Well,
but
I was
also
see-
I was chubbed up, hard as hell.
Yeah, like the
through the
dancing
dancing
stuff
for
is funny.
sure.
It's shot in a way so it's supposed to be titillating, but it
Yes.
wasn't. And I don't know exactly what the cinematic technique used there was. So like I knew like this is supposed to be that in this world this is like the hot way to film this, but it never really came off as like purposely sexy for the intended viewer. It was sexy for the fictional viewer in this world.
yes,
Well, and I also think we know too, like we know what they're saying. I mean, this movie is obviously a commentary on the lengths people will go to for beauty and to preserve their youth. And so when you see those scenes, they're so over stylized, they're so hyper stylized that you know that it's a commentary. It's making fun of those things. It's not saying, "Oh, look, this is beautiful." It's saying, "Oh my gosh, this is so gross," and it's so true. It's like so close to what things actually look like in the real world,
yeah.
to where you think about it like
Well,
this
and
is
we'd
not
met.
good.
Oh, I'm blanking. I just want to call him Ronald Reagan.
Oh,
Dennis
Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid. We
Man, he's good in this movie.
met Dennis Quaid. Like we know that it's his. Like that's his
It's gross.
perspective, right? Of
Yeah.
like,
Oh, yeah.
the guy that eats shrimp like that is the guy that wants to watch.
Can we talk about
workout
that? How
video.
like when Demi Moore's character in the beginning or toward the beginning of the film does a meeting with him, and they do this like horror scene. It is a horror
Mhm.
scene,
Mhm.
and it's just a guy eating. But I've never seen the way that they've taken horror elements, like gross out elements, and disturbing and uncomfortable. But it's just a guy eating, like slow motion, close up.
When he
Shrimp.
dips the shrimp into that butter, I guess. I'm
Yeah.
just like,
Oh,
oh
the
God.
Yeah, I
sound.
was like, a
the
lot of
audio
it's the
mixing?
soundscape.
It
Yeah.
is.
Oh,
Do you know who that
I
was?
mean,
Do you know who that was supposed to be?
no,
It was
who?
Ray Liotta. They had cast Ray
Oh,
Liotta,
right.
and he died, and they couldn't.
That would have been perfect
Yeah.
too. He would. They both. I can see both of them. But Dennis Quaid is doing. I mean, he's become not in like a bad way, not like Randy Quaid way, but he's become kind of crazy. The roles he takes are all him being
I think
crazy.
because he's also
Well,
become kind of crazy. Yeah.
Has he?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he's not like Randy Quaid crazy though. Like conspiracy, leaving the country. He's not like that, right?
He hasn't
He's
been.
definitely a supporter. Let's put it that way.
Oh,
And
okay.
there's a-
I
Yeah.
haven't seen that part of it, but but he's doing a movie like this, which is not glam. I mean, this is a very liberal type of.
I think
But-
that is a weird. It's interesting
Takedown.
that those are his two movies out.
Yeah,
right now.
Reagan in this.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
an
yeah, yeah.
interesting dichotomy. Yes.
Yeah, huh. But anyway, that was a great scene, and
What's the one?
I
Oh
thought
man, what's that movie he's in with Jim Caviezel? Oh, Frequency.
on the
I
Cruise.
kind of love that. Passion
I've
of
never
Christ.
seen it, but people
I don't-
rave about Frequency.
Frequency's really good. Frequency is like a really smart time travel movie without having it be time travel. If that
Mm.
makes sense. Like it's a really good movie. Unfortunately, it's got Jim Caviezel in it. So
Mm. But remember, he did that movie. I'm trying to think of what the movie was, but he played like a bad guy, like a villain, The Intruder. Did you see that? Did we review that?
I don't
think
know.
we might have.
He's like a neighbor.
Yeah, he's like a neighbor,
guess I
and
did.
Megan Good moves
think I
in.
did see that.
Moves in, and he's like this creepy neighbor, and he starts like showing up more and more, and like he's I don't know in her house at one point. He's really creepy.
There was a
and-
time in the 90s when those kind of movies were like coming out once a month.
we talked about it. What was the movie with the student with Jennifer Lopez?
The Boy Next
right?
Door.
Is that one like those
Yeah.
type of movies? Those like thriller.
But then there was like Pacific Heights, or what was the one with Michael Keaton?
Pacific Heights.
Pacific
Yeah,
Heights.
he
okay.
like he's like squatter in an apartment.
Yeah. So if you've seen Revenge, when you talk about the stylized and all that stuff, Revenge is kind of set in one house in the desert. Like it's like I'm going to say Australian outback, but I don't think that's right. And it's hyper stylized. Like the colors are super saturated, and there's a wild like peyote trip scene. So like when the switch happens between Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, there's like that, the light show and the fiery like Phoenix and the heart, like that. She does that in Revenge, but
the director.
yeah, director
Coralie
Coraline.
Fargeat.
Say her last name again. Fargeat.
No, Coralie Fargeat.
Fargeat. Okay.
Yeah.
She does something very similar, and it's kind of interesting to see that get like that kind of wild sequence get a bigger budget, because I don't
Yeah.
think Revenge had a very high budget. And
Revenge had a budget of I can't see the budget, but it only made $1 million.
It was
I'm
a-
guessing it was pretty art house.
Yeah.
it was very art housey. I think it
Yeah.
was one of those what do you film fest darlings.
Okay.
I think. I think Shudder may have had it, and this one is definitely a takedown on the. They don't really say. It's kind of funny to think when this takes place, because the idea of a workout show
Mm-hmm.
is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, like this.
Like that's not a thing.
This
that happens.
movie is definitely it's in its own world. Like if you want to apply
Yeah.
like realism and logic to it, you're at the wrong movie. Like you have to
Yeah.
you just have to let this movie be what it's going to be, because it's
Yeah.
because it's like there are lots of things that you could pick apart if you already hate this movie, right? Like because I agree, because it took me a couple minutes to figure out what they were doing, because I was like, when is this set? Because it felt very 80s, but then Dennis Quaid had a cell phone, and so I'm like,
Mhm.
And she had a
clearly
right.
is the present day, and then but it's like it's a workout show. I'm like, they don't really make those anymore, and then on top of it, it's a weekly workout show, so like you're only working out once a week. That's not really how exercise is intended to function. And so
Right.
and then like the listing to replace her in the role is she sees it in a newspaper. Like I'm
Yes.
just
yeah.
I'm just like what?
Yeah, this movie, I look at it as a
Yeah.
fable, is what it is.
I think that's
It's
a good way-
trying to
yeah,
tell.
that's a good way to call it, yeah.
It's a morality story, or not really morality, but it's a a
It's
look
what Mother
inward
wanted
at.
to be.
That is a
Oh,
great call.
Interesting.
I think it did
Yeah.
a good job. I never.
It's in
I
the
mean,
same
it's
kind of, yeah.
dream logic. It's
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
never.
So
I mean, I guess right. Initially, I'm going, when is this? And then pretty quickly went, oh, it doesn't matter.
doesn't matter.
yeah, because we talk about this a lot, and I rethink about movies like Mother that I know we all thought very negatively of, but I almost want to give it another chance because I think sometimes we take things too literally, and if they're trying to make a fable or something, I'm not saying it will be better. I know we had our problems.
You need
with
to
it, but
watch Noah and Mother back to back.
no, yeah. I
Same-
mean, some
same
movies
Throw
are not
Passion of the Christ in there.
But some movies are not executed well, but like Mother had really tense, stressful type of scenes in it. And so I think like a lot of time we're like, well, this is who would do that? Why would people act like that? But much like this movie, it's like, well, you can't really look at it realistically. It's trying to tell you it's
So
making a bigger point.
I don't think you're wrong. I think the difference is in the person telling the story. I
Yeah,
think
sure.
the director of this knows what she's doing, leans into kind of the fantastical nature. Obviously, when we get to the end of this movie,
But you're saying
leans-
Darren Aronofsky doesn't.
I'm
know-
saying he thinks he's a little too high, thinks too
Okay,
highly of
I see.
himself.
That's fair. I gotcha.
I
would
think
agree.
he,
Like I think
think
that maybe he should be directing films but not writing them.
yeah,
Mm, interesting.
I just like here you go, Snyder Bros. Zack Snyder should be a cinematographer.
Yes.
And not a director.
Sure.
The
Yeah.
whole movie opens and we see Demi Moore, who initially I thought they did de-aging on her face because I was like, I can't. She looked so. Maybe because I just haven't seen her in a movie in so long, and she's kind of been, with everything going on with her ex-husband, Bruce Willis, not Ashton Kutcher. Like
she looks great.
She looks fantastic, and
You
I
see pictures of her with Bruce when they post updates on him and everything. I mean, she looks great. That's what she looks like. She just has not been in the limelight.
That's what I think it
as
is.
much.
I mean, she was such a massive star in the 80s, 90s, and you think it was? I think she was probably out of the spotlight, kind of in the
yeah.
2000s.
I don't think she was very
though,
2000s.
Now, obviously, she's a beautiful woman. What is she, 60, right?
61.
Ish? So
Yeah, she looks amazing.
I do think depending on her, and I'm talking before makeup and thing, like before like prosthetic makeup, I do think they film her in different ways depending on her perception of herself.
Yeah.
Like at the beginning,
Yeah,
she's
100%
filming
right.
the
The workout show.
She's on top of the world still,
Yeah.
and she's not de-aged, and it's not like, but
But they're doing all
made
they're
up and
they're doing all the
films-
favors they can do for her lighting and
Yes.
makeup and yeah.
Because just even
Right.
with lighting later on, like when she's going to go on the date, it's very harsh
Yeah.
light. You can see.
Oh yeah,
more of
you
the
mean in the
contours
in the
of her
bathroom when
face.
she's trying to
Yeah,
put makeup?
yeah, yeah.
I'm with you.
And the
But
Demi
you're
Moore,
right. I mean, she looks.
the,
It's
the
almost
casting.
you almost think it's like they could have picked someone. But I guess that no, never mind, because she is.
I think
everybody's
no,
aging,
that's-
I
and
think
that's-
Demi Moore is the perfect
That's
person
what I'm saying.
for this
like,
role.
Like the whole point of this film is to say, I mean, there's obviously the high beauty standards and unrealistic expectations of society and Hollywood specifically, but then you have this woman who at 61 is gorgeous, absolutely beautiful, but the way she looks is not enough for herself and the people around her.
Right.
And so she feels the need and compelled to do this experimental drug that's totally underground, unsafe. And obviously, like to Tom's point, the cartoonishness of it, the fact that she'll go to a back alley in a dark warehouse, do all this stuff, but because she feels so insecure and like she's not good enough, but we're looking at her going, she looks incredible.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
first off,
And so
we
it's
all know
perfect
back
casting.
alleys aren't where you get medicine; they're where you get abortions.
God damn it! Damn it!
Mhm.
Second,
Well, you brought up
Yeah.
Mother. so-
That's
I am,
true.
and I
That's
do-
a good point.
To you guys' credit for just getting together the perfect crack team of people to talk about this
as I was
movie.
watching
About
this
women's
movie,
bodies, yeah.
there were
Yeah.
moments where I was like, "Man, I'm gonna have to talk about this movie," and I don't know how I'm gonna.
Well,
I know. I saw the movie and I loved the movie, but I'm like, now we have to talk
but
about
I think
it, which feels
I think
really.
the casting of Demi Moore though is perfect because I think that it kind of shows you. I think the point they're making here is that no one is happy with how they look, right? Because
Sure.
most
Yes.
people, would look at Demi Moore and I mean, I spent the first 5 minutes of this movie like trying to figure out like, does she really still look this good in her 60s?
Yeah.
And or are they doing something? And I agree. I don't think with Matt, I don't think they did anything other than just lighting and makeup,
No.
which is perfectly fair, normal movie stuff. And so it puts you in the mindset of like, even someone who looks like this sees themselves in the mirror and finds things to complain about.
Yes.
Well, they even
exactly.
do that. They do that. So she does the whole thing. We see Dennis Quaid and basically tells her, "Look, this is it. Like she's had this long
Well, he's
career.
gross.
Yeah.
Like, I
He's
just gotta
so
say,
yeah.
he's gross. She goes to the bathroom. She has to use the men's bathroom because the women's is out of order. And then he comes bursting in on a cell phone call saying, like, when is she going to hang it up? The ratings are bad. She's an old
Actually,
whatever. We
Kevin,
got to get rid of
he
her.
doesn't say the ratings are bad. The ratings
Right.
are good. It's just they want somebody younger because they think they could be better.
Better.
But like
Okay.
I mean, I vividly remember him saying
Yeah.
that like the numbers are great, but we need someone younger. And honestly, like this isn't a female thing, but it's exactly what happened with Jay Leno, right? Like
Where his numbers were good, but we
his
didn't
numbers
like
were
him.
good, but they wanted somebody younger, so they booted him and they bring in Conan, and then they didn't like the numbers.
Who is better?
And then
Hot, sexy Conan.
yeah, and then they
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so
Who
this
do you? Okay,
happens.
that's just a side conversational off-roading. Who do you think is better? Like who would?
Oh,
you,
Conan, a million
At
percent
what?
better.
Absolutely.
Leno sucks.
Leno was the worst.
Yeah,
He's
he
the
was
worst.
bad.
David Letterman all
Leno
day
was
long.
at one time was a phenomenal stand-up comic.
Stand up. That's the difference.
But was he?
When-
Was he?
He was even a
Did he
good
do any
host
blue
when
stuff?
he was filling in for
Oh.
Carson. He
Yeah,
was
well,
really
yes.
good, and then but
When-
when he took it over, it just got really, really lowest common denominator, and unfortunately, that works from a number standpoint.
So Joe, you might not know this, but I went back. Well, you definitely don't know this. I went back through and watched all the old stand-up stuff and late night stuff. So Leno used to be a guest on Letterman.
They were like
show.
best
Wait,
friends.
are you saying you
He got
went
his-
through and watched like the old Carson stuff?
Yes, I watched all
Oh, shit.
Carson,
Okay.
Letterman. I just went on this bench to, just find some comedy roots and see where everything evolved from. And so Leno basically got his
Yeah.
break on Letterman. He was a guest, a frequent guest, and they were friends. He would go on Letterman constantly, and that's why the whole thing when he got the job was so much worse because they were
Letterman thought he was going to get the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Didn't they give it to
'Cause
Leno? So did they start
he was
late night
Carson's
for Letterman?
He was Carson's heir apparent, and the thought process had always
Yeah.
been when Carson leaves, then 12:30 moves to 11:30, and you get a new 12:30. And
Okay, but
Yeah.
did they start the late show for Letterman, or was there somebody
Yes.
already there that
No,
Letterman?
they-
before that, it was what was his name? Tom. God dang it! But it was an interview show.
Okay,
But it wasn't.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, his show was essentially a
Yeah.
news show.
It was a really good interview show. It was like long form
Yeah.
interviews. I mean, basically, it was a podcast, and he would talk to really famous people.
You know what my favorite interview show is?
Between Two Ferns?
Dick Cavett.
Yeah, Dick Cavett was really good. Tom Snyder
He was an
who hosted the show.
Tom
Okay,
Snyder,
okay.
yeah, but it was totally different. The Late Show with Tom Snyder was like you said, interviewee. So Letterman, yeah, he got that because he didn't get the other job. But the point is, Leno was a really, really funny stand-up, and then he would be a guest host. Joan Rivers would be a guest host,
yeah.
and Letterman would be a guest host. But it was always, presumed. I mean, Letterman would be the guy, and then that when they chose Leno, it was terrible. And then his shows they just weren't good. I mean, I
No.
know that again, like playing to the masses, the wide appeal thing, but yeah, they were bad. And Letterman was always consistently funny.
You know who where you never saw David Letterman?
Where's that?
Wrestling Hulk Hogan. Because Jay
Leno
Leno
wrestled Hulk Hogan?
Jay Leno and Diamond Dallas Page wrestled Hulk Hogan and Dennis Rodman on a pay-per-view.
Letterman wrestled
it's-
Andy Kaufman though.
I guess that's
I was-
true.
that's just what I was about to say. And almost wrestled Crispin Glover.
Yeah.
Almost had to.
Yeah, well, yeah. But it's yes, I get what happened? How did we get
It was you, Joe. I don't know
probably
how you
was me,
got
I
here.
don't know.
But anyway,
It's a
so
skill.
So he basically wants her out, and
Yeah.
she's feeling she doesn't want to leave. She's been successful, and she's on the way home, not really paying attention. She's all freaked out because of what she overhears, and she gets hit by a truck or a big car or something.
Yeah, and she goes to the doctor. They're like, "You're all right." They're gonna cut her loose, and she's kind of this doctor is kind of starstruck by her. My wife's a huge fan, yada yada. And Demi Moore just breaks down, and she realizes that her career is over. And as the doctor leaves, there's this other
Like a nurse.
like a nurse, and I could tell just by looking at him, the way they film him
It
as
could
well.
be a nurse because it was
He's
a boy.
Bruce- Oh, he's like Bruce Campbell in
Escape from LA,
right? It's
yes, it's just
uncanny,
it's
right?
just uncanny enough where you're like, but then I was like, well, they are in LA, so
it's very LA plastic.
Yeah, like the
you've
color
had
of
too
his
much,
eyes
yeah.
are just a little too blue. The skin is just a little too tan.
But it's
or
like his
flat.
eyebrows are super tattooed, like stenciled on.
Yes.
Like, you can just tell that it's very LA too much.
And he kind of says, he's like, hold on one second, let me check something out. And she's like, I thought we were done. He's like, yeah.
Oh, he starts squeezing the
spine.
This
Ooh, it's so
thing's
creepy.
just
Yeah.
packed with goop.
The way this movie's filmed again, like the way that she films this and chooses to show these things that, I mean, they're in a doctor's office, and you're probably pretty sure he's not going to assault her, or like it's not going to be anything like that. But he's just like checking something and
tell you,
checking her
Kevin,
spine.
I'm not sure. Like, that's the thing
Well-
about, like, if you have seen Revenge, you know that,
Okay.
like, there's really nothing that is safe. You
But
think
I'm
you're
just saying,
safe,
this
but you're
story
not.
wasn't like, I wasn't worried he was going to do that, but like just him checking her spine, it's filmed so close up and like tense
Yeah.
that you're so uncomfortable with everything in this movie.
And when he says you're a perfect candidate, thanks, see you, bye. And she leaves. That's where we see she goes back to her apartment. We see this bouquet of flowers.
And he does have a birthmark on his arm, which is clearly going to come back later.
Right.
Because you're going to be looking for it.
Which I thought, there's a scene later when we see Demi Moore full frontal, and she's got like this birthmark on her hip. And I was like, I thought there was going to be some correlation between the birthmark on
I
his
did too.
arm and the birthmark on her hip.
I thought it was a weird, like your body's growing something, but I think
Well,
it was just an identifying.
It was growing something.
It is, but I don't think that was, at least I didn't think that was the
Sure,
through
sure.
line. But I thought the same thing, like, oh, what's it going to start doing to you? Like the more you take, it's going to be
Right.
more apparent or something.
So she's going through her mail, and she finds this like USB drive, and she plugs it into her.
It was in her pocket.
Is that what it was? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
She plugs it into the computer or her TV, and it turns on, and we get this like abstract ad for this thing called the Substance. It's this green liquid that basically says, have you ever wanted to be your best version of yourself? And to her credit, she takes it out, she washes it, she disregards it completely and throws
Cool
it.
shot.
Yeah, throws
Bottom
it in
of
the
a trash can,
Out of
right?
the trash
Like,
can.
That's the thing that keeps movies like this interesting. Like instead of playing it safe and just giving basic shots, when you go to movies like this, the more art house movies, you get directors with a little bit more style. And
I wish, because I think you're absolutely right. I do wish that more theaters would start carrying things from Fantastic Fest or anything like that, because those, you're gonna look, the things you get from Warner Brothers or from Sony or from all of those big top theater or movie making companies all kind of look the same, right?
Yeah, it's
Nobody's really
populist. It's the same thing.
Nobody's really doing anything innovative.
It's what
as
Tom
the
just
viewer, I don't get to be the trash can.
Yes.
said.
You get to, if this is like a David Fincher movie, and don't get me wrong, I love David Fincher. He's one of my favorite directors of all time, but he's not going to do that shot, right? He's going to show that.
I don't know, but that's not even a good example. I just think if this is
I think it's a very good example.
Oh, well, it
I
was
think
okay.
it's a
I'll meet you in the middle.
moderately
It was-
okay
Yeah, it was
example.
fine. But it's not a Fincher. Fincher's stylized.
No,
You're talking about
that's
a
right.
Ron Howard movie.
Yes,
I'm gonna
that's
give you
fair.
that shot.
Yeah.
It's a craftsman, person that's made billions of dollars at the box office, very good movies, highly reviewed, but they play it safe. He's not going to do that. When you look at Orson Welles, look at Citizen Kane and think about how old that movie is, but there's a reason why it's studied in film school. It's a reason why it's one of the greatest movies of all time. There are shots in that movie that were invented for that movie.
Well,
there were shots that because he thought of us, you can do this a different way. Psycho is the same way.
Psycho very
has
much.
shots.
Yeah.
That staircase shot is still just incredible, looking down the way, and
Yeah.
there's
maybe,
you know,
maybe,
they-
maybe not Arbogast falling down the stairs isn't the
it was,
best shot.
but it was a cool shot.
At
Way
the
to
time,
show it.
absolutely.
Citizen
right?
Kane filmed on an iPhone. That's how they
Oh.
got a lot of those shots. 'cause
Well,
they
he
get
turned
in
it. He
there
turned it
and-
into panorama view. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
movie.
The CinemaScope, please. if you take one of those old cameras that they photographed on or whatever, but turned it the other
Correct.
direction, you
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
CinemaScope.
CinemaScope.
Yep.
But I will say, in Revenge, she does a 2 to 3 minute steady cam shot, unbreaking. It's a whole scene of a guy walking into a house, taking his clothes off, getting in a shower, but she never breaks. Like, so even we've talked about that before in was it Tightrope? Was that the big one? What's the one where what's the first one where it's like one continuous shot?
Oh, Rope.
Rope.
Hitchcock. Rope.
Yeah, Rope. And they do it so well in that James Bond movie too. It's so well done in the
they
whatever
cheat
James
a lot
Bond movie
these
that
days,
was.
though.
Yeah, I don't think she.
Well, even Hitchcock cheated, but he had.
Well, but he
to.
didn't use
Was like-
computers to cheat. It was like they would go through. They would, yeah. But
Yeah. But he, I mean,
This
it's-
is what pisses me off because when Tom sees my AI movie, he's going to call it cheating. But it was hard. It was hard to write in drama, one continuous shot, thriller.
Chat
you
GPT's
know?
like,
you
I got
couldn't
you.
have done it. It's just a tool, and I know how to use it. And
It is that just touching on that real quick. It is weird to see Michael Bay on one side of the AI argument and James Cameron on the other side, but not on the sides you would think they would be on.
well, it's because James
Yeah.
Cameron's a technological guy.
That
He's
is
a-
very
He's a
true.
tinkerer. So even though artists and especially people in Hollywood and all are pushing back against AI, James Cameron's an innovator and he's been pushing technology since the 80s when with all the CGI
Oh yeah,
stuff.
Terminator 2
So
big
of
time.
course, when he sees that you can use it as a tool in filmmaking, he's gonna want
I
to.
did think it was weird
know.
though, because I was like, huh.
But the problem is, Joe, as much as we hate it and want to push back, when is James Cameron wrong?
we might
he's a
say,
jerk,
we might
but,
say
well,
he's
yeah.
we might say he's wrong in the beginning, but then
That's what
10
I'm-
to 15 years
But
later we're
what
like,
is-
huh.
I think that's a thing of like, because he's right that you could probably do these things a lot easier and faster, but that doesn't make it like, this is more of a like almost moral issue than
Yes.
tech issue,
Something tells
you
me
know?
James Cameron
Like,
doesn't have the best.
when
No,
he's-
but what I mean is if he's adopting it and he sees something, this is like when Spielberg said theaters were going to be hurting in 10 years or whatever. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
as much as we hate to hear that and we're like, oh, stop it, you're being so negative and blah, blah, blah. And then they happen and you go, oh, they
It
know
did-
what they're
it
talking
did
about,
happen.
you know? And so anyway, but I hope it doesn't get that bad. But if he's saying it, it does make you kind of want to listen. Like, oh, I think he maybe knows something. He sees something that we don't.
Right.
But anyway.
Yeah, so she disregards the trailer or the advertisement, goes into the bathroom.
Is it an advertisement? We're watching an indie movie, so we have to say it
sorry,
like that.
excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. So she goes into the bathroom, and again, nudity in movies has become so rare that when
That's
it
true.
happens, I'm like, oh, like that's Demi Moore, like
It was-
in the buff.
Oh, this part was so hot.
But and so
a
what
new
I
fetish was
appreciated,
a,
yeah,
a
right.
woman disgusted with her own body. Oh yeah.
What I found super interesting, and I was like, okay, now I know what we're doing, is there's this Demi Moore kind of like wipes the steam away from the mirror, and we see her body, and rather than like Tom said, rather than shoot it in like this, sexy kind of way, it just feels like a
I
woman
think-
standing in front of a mirror.
Even as like a teenager, if people were like, "I heard there's a lot of nudity in it," I'd be like, "Yeah, there is."
But it's not what you
Something
think.
wrong with it, though.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
not-
like it's you see her stomach isn't flat because she's had children. You see a scar that looks like maybe she had her appendix out. You see the birthmark. You see she looks like herself,
A real person.
person.
That's the point. We don't get that in Hollywood. And Demi Moore, she looks like an amazing real person, but she is a real person. And I don't want to be the stereotypical like how brave, to use that like cliche brave, but like to do
I
this
mean-
role, to put yourself out there
'Cause
as an
here's a-
A-list
a-
actress at one point.
A thing I make fun of all the time is how it seems like the way women can get like Oscar buzz is to be very ugly in a movie.
Oh, you mean like Charlize
right.
Theron in Monster?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, so cool. But it's like, yeah, but you're covered in makeup.
Prosthetic.
And it's almost
It's
like they're
doing it,
saying,
yeah.
like, wow, for a beautiful woman to wear a Halloween mask. That's so brave. And, you know, I mean,
Right.
I'm not, I think she was great in that role. I just think that's a weird way that people like look at that. It's always like, if you see the first trailer and it's like, oh man, they put a horn on her face. This is going to be good.
When Eddie Redmayne got, I think that was kind of the end of his career a little bit, when he got nominated for playing a trans
Who
person.
called it?
And people were like, "No, you absolutely
was
did.
like,
100%.
how is this not blackface?
100%.
He's so overrated. I've never liked Eddie Redmayne, and I cannot believe that was like.
Did he win? He didn't win for that, did he?
I don't think
He did,
I
right?
don't think so.
I don't.
Or he won a Golden
I think
Globe
he
or
won
something.
I think he won for the Stephen Hawking
Yeah.
thing,
Oh, that's the one.
which is
Okay, but-
even not even worse. It's equally bad. To be, it's you know.
I don't know that that's equally bad, because it's like there aren't.
I guess Stephen Hawking.
there aren't a
you're not
lot of
gonna find
people with
somebody-
that disability who are working
That's true.
actors.
That's
there
true.
are lots of transgender people who could use the work.
Yes, and who are probably
agree.
phenomenal actors. We just have no idea
Right,
who they
there's
are
no-
because they
there's
won't
no
get the
roles for
shot.
them. And then there is one, and it goes to this dude. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So, right. Not to like denigrate the role in Monster. I'm not saying this bad, but I do think Demi Moore doing this is, there are absolutely people on the internet that would like see a still shot from that part of the movie of her like inspecting her body and type out, "Oh, gross." I mean,
Absolutely.
I don't even think they believe it, but it, you know, I mean, that's the way the world is.
It is, yeah. But what is interesting is the fact that she did put herself out there. Like that's not, you know,
No,
the
yeah.
way that shot is. There's nothing to hide. Like it's basically a 360 shot of her body, and the way she reacts to her own body is intense, because she's just like, I cannot believe, you know, we see her on the poster, like on her wall, or even in the beginning of the movie in that skin tight little outfit. And then all of that comes off and she's home and she's vulnerable because she's just been in this accident. And I think it's a very not provocative, evocative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Evokes a lot of feelings of it's like the vulnerability is what's really impressive, like you guys said. And for her to do that and to just put it all out there, and for the camera not to cut, for it just lingers,
especially at
on.
this point in her career, right? Like she is an established actress. She is not
Right.
someone that like, you know, the director's like, hey, look, we're going to do this shot and you're the star of this movie. She's not a 25-year-old actress who's trying to get a break.
I think this
Like-
is one of those roles, though, where the baggage the actor brings to the role helps the film. Right?
Absolutely, it
Where,
does.
where
Oh,
Tom
for
Cruise
sure.
brings baggage sometimes that hurts the film. Like her baggage, if you will, you know, the fact that we know her as, you know, this very famous sex symbol
Yeah.
actress,
Mhm.
and so like that helps the film. I don't, you know, like there's only a handful of actresses who could have played this role that would have elevated the material in that way. And really, ultimately, it's nothing about her talent, not to take away from that, but like it is the history of who this actress is. You know,
Sure,
it's
100%.
It's not her losing herself in a role. It's her history, like making that role more effective.
Right. We're carrying it with us
Yeah.
from what we know. And I think that's why they
For sure.
cast her. I think that's why she signed up. She knew exactly
Yeah.
what she's signing up for. And I also watched it imagining that this is probably a very personal role for her, because she's in this world. She
Mhm.
lives in Hollywood, and she's seeing the casting and the roles for women going to the younger up and coming actors. And
Yeah.
I'm
She
sure
looks great, but
that's
it's not
tough
good
to-
enough.
Right. And so I have to imagine her bringing her own personal experiences. This was probably a really difficult film to make, and she does a phenomenal job in it.
Oh yeah, big time.
No, and she's naked alongside
Margaret Qualley.
and I mean, now she is made up and filmed to look perfect, but I mean,
Even for Margaret Qualley, who looks amazing, and perfect casting. I really think that was
They
great
do look
young
very similar.
casting.
Yeah.
It's perfect casting.
Would have been wild if they're like, hey, Addie McDowell, how do you feel about being in this movie? What?
Uh,
No way.
So I think even for her, even though Margaret Qualley looks phenomenal, and obviously they cast her, that's one of the reasons, but she's still vulnerable. She's still just standing there naked in a clinical setting that is not
Right.
necessarily always glamorizing it, like the bathroom scenes, right? Like just full screen. I mean, think about it, big screen movie
Oh
theater
yeah.
and just stationary camera there.
I
I
did.
think
Did you
that
see
has to
her
be a
on
very
what's the guy who does the Late Show now?
Leno.
No, not Leno. The other one.
I don't
Seth
remember.
Meyers.
Jimmy
Fallon.
Fallon, where
Oh,
she was talking about like her most recent like run of movies and how her family have gone to see them without knowing what's going to
Mm.
happen in them. So like her mom went to go see Driveway Dolls and she was just like, I cannot believe you did that movie. And she, to Margaret Qualley's credit, she goes, Mom, don't worry, nobody saw that movie. Like it's fine.
That's good.
And then she
Yeah.
did something else that maybe she had some harder nudity in, and then that her dad was going to see, and she was like, please don't go see this movie. And then she had like a nanny who was like kind of very not conservative, but like, you know, this kind of movie would
Sure.
not be for this nanny. And she called this woman called Margaret Qualley and was just like, you need Jesus. Like I can like walking out of this one. So yeah, so she decides to take this offer and she follows the directions. She goes to this back alley, which I
Well,
do.
she sees, I think, don't you think it's like she sees the ad that says they're recasting for her role, and she sees
Well, I think she
all
sees the ad, but then she also looks out her window and sees herself reflected back at her, because I think it's her ad that's on the
they
billboard.
took it off right when she got in the crashes because
Oh.
they were covering it up.
You're right.
So,
but I feel
I
like
think-
there's a billboard across, like from that big open window in her living room that was her.
Yeah,
that
she was
changes to
originally
Margaret
on
Qualley.
the billboard directly outside of her apartment
Mhm.
window. Again,
Yes.
don't apply realism to this.
Right. Also correct.
I bought this multi-million dollar apartment in LA for a dramatic view, and then someone put a billboard directly in front of my window. That would not occur.
Yeah, right.
So she decides to.
But
take the
Tom, I do want to
substance.
reference the back alley thing. I think that's an absolute reference to abortion.
Yeah.
I think a woman going into a back alley for a medical procedure is absolutely
I think this movie has a lot to say,
But-
and it is flashy. There are some great shots. It's filmed very well. It's a visual feast, if you will, but it's not just style over substance.
No.
There's
Right.
a ton to unpack here.
Yes,
And
I
people
agree.
do that. I mean, people go get their turkey teeth, get the veneers and fly over to Turkey and
Oh, I
get
did
their
not know what you
perfect-
were talking about. Turkey
I
teeth?
call them turkey teeth.
Oh man,
Uh,
I don't think it's. I
I mean, a lot of people go to Mexico for cosmetic surgery.
that's true.
Like it's
That's
Yeah.
true.
They have these like spas where it's like kind of like a resort, but then they're also giving you a Brazilian butt lift.
Yeah, watch Saw 10.
That's another
Right.
reason why
I guess
Tom
that's
looks so
right.
young.
That's right. That's why they wouldn't.
And you're not even seeing my butt.
So she and it's very cold and sterile, and she has this key. So she goes to box 503. She takes this box out, and it's one of the things that I did kind of push back on a little bit. Was like, there's no directions, so she's just guessing.
Mhm.
Where
Yeah.
like when it comes to like the spinal fluid or how are you going to get the food into them, or she just grabs the next thing and she's like, got it, and
I-
just puts it all together.
Look, and maybe I'm spackling gaps that the movie doesn't deserve, but I did feel like that was sort of like commentary on you don't know what's in this stuff.
I don't
You're
think
just
you're wrong.
trusting it because you
Oh,
want to be
100%.
beautiful. So
That's the way I took
bad.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that 100%. So she
That's what they're it's a direct commentary on like what you guys said, going to these fly-by-night clinics, taking things that are not FDA approved because you can get them in other places, but there's a reason sometimes why they're not approved. It's just you're trusting it. And this beautiful woman
GLP-1s from
feels that she-
compounding clinics,
what is that?
like
What?
Ozempic, stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Yeah, but
But-
it's just wild because even that is now being advertised on Instagram, where it's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You can get it on
and
Groupon.
everybody's. Did they
Yeah,
really?
I've seen it pop up on my Groupon
That's
ads.
crazy. That's crazy.
But then the fact is that this woman who we all know looks so great sees herself and goes, no, I need this. And then, oh, I'll go into this rundown back alley thing and whatever that's totally unsafe. And now I'll take this substance that I have no idea what it is. I'll put this in my body because that's how badly I need to look younger.
Right.
Yeah.
And she does. And I like that initially it's a very stereotypical move in kind of body horror or science fiction movies where the person injects themselves with this thing and nothing happens. And she's just like, oh, it's bull. Like, it's not real. And then all of a sudden things start happening.
Yes.
And if you know anything about, so I referenced the movie, I'll reference this later, but Screaming Mad George is this makeup effects pioneer, I guess you could say, where he is kind of notorious for doing very gross, wet, like goopy body horror stuff. Like that is his jam a lot. I think, did he do one of the Nightmare movies, Matt? Am I right about that? Did he do one of those?
Don't make me be wrong.
I don't know, but he like that.
I know
was
what I
kind
want to
of,
say, but
I think
I
that he
don't
did,
know.
but I'm not sure. Or maybe stuff was influenced by him.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street 4.
Yes.
Oh, I was. Should have said it.
No,
Should have said it.
should have shot your
said it.
shot. Should have shot your shot.
And this also, Cronenberg with Videodrome or The Fly. This is
Jack Frost. That creepy
Oh.
snowman one.
that makes sense. If you've ever not the George Clooney one,
No,
the
not
other
that
one.
Yeah.
This is where it starts, right? So Demi Moore kind of falls on the ground and her back, like along her spine, starts to split open. And kind of like
And her eye
Yeah.
has two pupils.
well, I guess we should say the
and,
beginning of
like-
this movie is somebody frying 2 eggs, and you're like, they inject it with or frying a egg, they inject it with the substance, and then all of a sudden that egg splits into 2.
Yeah.
And you're like,
and they do the
all
same
right.
thing with their eye, with their
Yes.
iris, and it starts splitting.
And
it's
her
so
body.
cool looking. Well, yeah, but just the whole thing about her, like, like freaking out and like tensing up and not knowing what's happening with her body, and then things start multiplying, and it's so cool. The effects are great.
Yes. And then out of her back pops a naked Margaret Qualley, and almost like a newborn baby, where she doesn't really know like how to move. I guess more like a deer, right? Like a deer that is freshly born, where like her legs don't really work, but she's trying to figure it out. Now, what I did think was interesting is I thought this was going to be Demi Moore in another body. This
I
is a
think it
complete-
is.
this is a
that's what I still
completely
can't-
different
I still can't-
person.
No, I still can't figure that out. I don't know,
I don't
Joe.
think it's a different person. I think it is commentary on like being upset with your younger self for not making the decisions.
Okay,
I think she's just losing her mind.
like
And I
like
think
grip
when
on
she
reality.
sees, because they remember, Joe, you are one.
That's right.
They are
That's
the same
true.
person. And I think she's making bad decisions because she's blinded by, or she's high. She's chasing after the feeling of I'm young and I can do all this stuff.
Okay.
And she's addicted to it. And then when she's older, even though she sees the damage, the whole point is she opts in to keep doing it, even though she knows she's going to make bad decisions.
Sure.
That's what I
So-
thought, and I have seen people discussing if it is 2 different people or if it's the same person.
I don't think if it
I think
weren't
it's
her, I
it's
don't
the
think she
same
would do
person,
it.
but it's different consciousness.
That's
Right,
that's
like-
what I think. That's kind of what I.
And
yeah.
so I was always struggling with like, so what's the upside for Demi Moore? Like she's
Right,
not
right.
getting to enjoy. Like I thought on some level she would still, her consciousness would still be in the other self, but it's not. So like basically she's giving up half of what's left of her life.
That's-
still think it is.
That's why I
okay,
don't think.
So like
yeah.
Sunday, I had a day to do nothing and I knew about it, right? Sunday was coming up. Awesome. I'm going to get a bunch of work done. But then Sunday came and I played video games all day. And now today I'm going, why did he do that? He
Yeah.
had all that time. He should have used it responsibly. And that's the way I
I gotta tell you,
took it.
Matt,
I agree.
It-
I
it
think
feel-
she's in
it
like a
feels
hypnosis
like-
when she's
I
in
don't
that other
think she
state,
is,
and
though,
she like
because
that,
I
it
feel like-
feels like you're deflecting a little bit there, Matt. Why did he do that?
That's
You
what I'm
did.
saying.
That's
You
what he
did
just
it.
said.
Right,
Yes.
it was
You are
me.
one.
I think the
Matt.
problem with that analogy though is that but you still got to enjoy the video games. Like, there's nothing that makes me think.
But I don't feel that way today.
But-
I guess.
No,
But in the
like
moment
today,
you
I
did,
feel-
and we don't ever really get the impression that Demi Moore is experiencing
So,
what her
okay.
other self is experiencing. So I don't.
But why would she do it? Your question is the answer,
No,
Tom.
because
there is no reason for her to do it if she didn't experience it. Why would she keep doing
That
it?
is an interesting question, though, Tom, because
But she's
when we
always
get to the-
confused when she wakes up as to what has occurred.
Same, dude.
But
I'm sitting here going, what the? All this work should be done, Matt. We shouldn't be so stressed on Monday. This was supposed to have happened already.
I
But-
think,
but,
well,
hold on,
she's,
hold on, hold
she's
on.
drinking and she's partying. She's confused because she's on a bender, and then she wakes up and is like, "What the hell did she do?" And then they keep reminding her, "You are one." It's her, but she's not making the right decisions in that other body.
But even Tom, I think you're onto something, because the scene. Okay, we're gonna jump a little bit ahead. Not we'll go through other stuff, but when
no,
they
just go ahead.
okay, so when Demi Moore decides to terminate Margaret Qualley, she immediately regrets it. She's like, "Please, I need you. I need you. We need to do this. You need to go out there on stage." So I do think there is some sort of connection, because Demi Moore knows that Margaret Qualley is going to be this star, that Demi Moore, it feels like Demi Moore never got to that level.
No, they said she won an Oscar.
She was.
Oh, I
She's-
guess that's true.
She's
but
got
she's
a star
trying,
on the
that's,
Walk of Fame,
which I think
She's
is a great
Well,
way
They
to end
buy
this
those
movie.
for you.
So
Yeah,
I take
ask
that.
Batman.
I take that as like when you have had a success when you're younger, and then you get older, and people go, "Oh, I loved you in the
X,
thing
Y, and
you
Z.
did 25 years ago."
yeah.
And that starts to be like, but what about me? Like, what
I'm
about
still
now?
doing stuff for the
I'm
last
doing stuff,
25
and it's
years, yeah.
important. Who I am now is important, and you start to sort of resent
The then,
the then, and it becomes this other entity, and you.
I think there's
I
probably
think-
something to that.
I also think, because we talked about this at the beginning of the episode, this is another one of those things you can't take it literally. You can't ask, and they don't explain it to you, and that's the good thing, right? Because when they do explain stuff, a lot of times you're like, well, that's dumb, or that doesn't make
Right.
sense. They leave it open because you're not supposed to take this literally, and you're supposed to ask yourself the question, why would someone do this? And that's the point. Why would they do this? Why would anyone beautiful and still has a career or lots of money just retire, travel, do whatever? No,
Well,
because mentally she has to be beautiful and on a TV show and have people love her, and so
And her
she keeps
worth is
doing-
tied.
I didn't
to
think I was going to
those
get to
things.
get into Wrestling Corner, but I get to now.
I don't see why
Oh,
we
thank
would.
goodness.
It just doesn't make
Thank
sense to
goodness.
me.
It is people, retired wrestlers who have walked away from the business and are still in good mental capacity, have always said there is nothing like your music hitting and that crowd
Mhm.
reacting to you. He's like, that is it. The people have always said that's the drug. That's the hit that you want, is that reaction from the crowd. And I think that there is something to
Darren
that.
Aronofsky made a movie about this,
He
I've seen
did.
that.
Oh
I've seen
man, he
that.
sure did, didn't he?
right?
Yeah, that movie.
That's-
Actually, that movie's pretty good.
It is. That movie's
Also
crazy.
starring a Hollywood starlet who
Man,
has
he would have.
who
He's
has
the perfect
aged-
male analog for this.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
That's his.
Marissa Tomei in
the
that movie
substance, yeah.
is,
Oh, I was talking about
I was
Mickey
about Mickey,
Rourke.
yeah.
no, but
Yeah, because
but I mean,
that's him. He's not at his prime, but he was an A-list Hollywood heartthrob, and now look at what he's
Man,
doing.
have you seen him recently?
Well, I imagine it's
It
probably
is.
looked
Talking
like
about Iron
fairly
Man
recently.
2.
Nope. I'm talking like now, because he has done more work on his face.
Well, that's the
is.
problem, Joe. That's what we're talking
Uh-huh.
about. That's the whole point. Is that
Actually,
you've got someone that's
I do
chasing
think it is
something.
kind of a thing, right? That like clearly this is a female perspective and applies more specifically to women and maybe more importantly, but this is absolutely something that like everybody deals with.
Yeah, Matt's adding nipples daily to try to achieve unrealistic beauty
Take
standards.
a scroll through my Instagram and you can very
It's one of my
easily see what I
Your
see
TikTok
wrong
is
with
still one of
myself.
my favorite things. Every time I see a Matt Basler TikTok, I'm
Yeah.
like, yep, I'm in. You get
Yeah.
me for 30 seconds, Matt. Good job.
Never big
Dude,
enough.
I don't like the finger on your chin. That one is so gross, and I hate it every time I see it.
I like
That one's too weird.
I
The
like
The
the
substance
hand
has
feet-
really inspired me.
I
yeah,
like
the
the
hand
I like
feet
the
are fine,
Do Re
but-
Mi one. That was
Thank you.
Yeah, just a high pitched squeal the whole time. That's what that is.
So anyway, she comes out and she starts taking over. So it's a week to week thing.
Yeah,
The
you get
rules of the
7
thing
days.
explain 7 days is one, and then you have to switch places. And you have to. These are the rules, right? It's like don't feed a gremlin after midnight, don't get them wet, that kind of thing. Stuff's going to go down
she
if you
gets
do.
wet.
Of course, we know we're.
Oh, she gets wet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, she takes a
So-
shower.
So now she's like looking at herself in the mirror, and it's Margaret Qualley again, all out there in the same setting, and just looking at her body, and it's like, yeah, she's a perfect body, looks amazing, and everything.
She develops masterful carpentry skills.
Yes.
Yeah, that whole thing was like unbelievable.
Yeah,
with it.
right,
But
right,
again,
right.
This is not what we're here
I
to
couldn't
do.
figure it out for a second when she's knocking on the walls. I'm like, what is she doing? And then she builds a secret hidey hole to put
Secret
her
hidey
other
hole.
body.
Yeah, that she cuts through, like, I'm assuming that is ceramic tile, like, perfectly.
Yeah.
Like, all right, good job.
But I
Good job.
think again, so now when you look at this as more of a, I mean, it's not literal, right? It's
sure.
saying she is so disgusted with herself, so disgusted at what to us, we obviously a beautiful 61-year-old woman looks like, that she can't even look at her, doesn't want her around, and she's hiding her away, compartmentalizing
Yes.
this part of her life she can't stand to look at. So again, it's a fable. It's not literal. It's what lengths will a person go to not see what they really look like, to cover it up, makeup, prosthetic, drugs, experimental surgery, you name it, plastic surgery, obviously.
All of the
So
above, yeah.
that's yeah. So anyway, but she goes out there and she decides that she's going to audition for the role she got fired from.
Yeah.
And she goes to the audition. They're auditioning people being very rude, very, Simon on American Idol, very judgy. Your face is out of place.
It reminded
what-
me
blah, blah,
of
blah.
that show that John Stamos was on, where they would use the
Full House?
laser pointers
Fuller
to
House.
judge women's bodies.
Oh,
What
no,
are you
I never
talking
saw
about?
that. Ooh.
Was that? Did they give him plastic surgery?
I don't
The
remember
Swan,
what
or
it
is it
was.
different in that one?
Oh, there
But-
was a show called The Swan.
Can you
That-
imagine? Not in 2024, there isn't, right?
Yeah,
that must
right,
have been
right,
in
right.
the early 2010s
You know that
or
whoever
something.
has the rights to that show is like, we're not putting it on
I'm
the
not-
streaming
yeah.
service. Don't put that out there.
That's going to be a tax write-off. That's an
Yeah,
easy
right,
choice.
right.
but they're very judgmental, and then she comes along, and again, she's stunning, she's
Yeah.
gorgeous.
And I will
She-
say,
she-
I know we kind of busted Margaret Qualley's balls about Driveway Dolls and how not good that was and how not good she was in that.
no lies detected. Go on.
Yeah. And I do appreciate
No,
that.
no, it's not her fault. We said during the
100%
movie,
is not her
we
fault.
said she is so charismatic. We could see that she is very likable, very charismatic.
Yeah.
That movie and the script are terrible.
She's great in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
She's always good in what she
Yeah.
shows up in. She's very charismatic. I think she's going to be the next big thing.
So I
She's-
appreciate, I agree with you. I think she's in that
You sound just
next
like Dennis
class.
Quaid.
That
Hey,
next
you're gonna
class
be the
of
next
like,
Oh, let me
big
get my
thing.
shrimp.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I think like Florence Pugh and Margaret Qualley, like there's another
Yeah,
class
she's-
that's coming
yeah.
that's about to break through. Yeah. So
Okay.
she
auditions.
gets the role immediately, right? She sees like this very 80s inspired purple and pink spandex. She goes in and she just destroys the interview because I have to believe if she is part of Demi Moore's character, she's got the same skills that Demi Moore does, right? She inherited
Oh,
those
yes.
skills that Demi Moore had. So she's got the charisma, she's got the moves, she's got the, all of that stuff.
I think
the
she's
presence on
literally
camera.
her younger self. I
think there's probably
that's a
something
younger
to-
version of Demi Moore.
Well, no, because they have
is-
different eye colors.
Yeah, but I just mean that I think
Or maybe the blue eyes are part of because the guy at the hospital had those dark
had the
those
blue. Yeah,
bright
it
blue
probably
eyes.
is the distinguishing factor.
I need to
But
hop
I just
in
think that
issue a retraction. It was not John Stamos. It was Lorenzo Lamas.
Well, then it doesn't.
And the
really
show was
matter.
called
Wow.
Are You Hot?
Oh my
John-
God,
John
That-
Stamos would never.
Is that Renegade?
that is
Lorenzo
Renegade.
Lam? Cool.
And Grease
Yeah.
2.
That is Renegade.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Nobody saw Grease 2. It's got Michelle
and
Pfeiffer in
Meep and Phineas and Ferb.
Is he?
Is
Is
that right?
Lorenzo Lamas in that?
Wow.
He's the character of Meep
that's
and
really
Phineas and
funny.
Ferb. He's in one episode. It's
Oh,
a
okay.
very specific.
thought it was-
It's a.
It was
plot
like a
point,
returning
yeah.
character.
He's like a little, like an alien with like this pink outfit and a big curly mustache and a deep voice that like is so counterintuitive to
That's
like.
Lorenzo.
Yeah, it is
That's
Lorenzo.
Lorenzo. So
Um,
anyway, but
so
but
she gets it, and then of course the ratings go through the roof. because
Dennis Quaid is crumbling to every concession because again, it's so unrealistic. Where she's like, I can only film every other
Yeah.
week and blah blah blah. And then like any TV show would do that, and he's like, whatever you need, like you're hot, we need you. I'm willing to do anything unrealistic for your beauty and to
Right.
have you.
And then once Margaret Qualley's Sue. I'm sorry.
Sue.
Sue is Margaret Qualley. Once Sue gets a taste of this newly refound success, she starts pushing the boundaries a little bit. They are told that it can only be 7 days. You get 7 days in each body, and there's a specific reason for that. They don't tell you what that is. But Margaret Qualley takes an extra day. So Sue takes an extra day from Bethy? No. What's her name?
Elizabeth?
Elizabeth?
Is it
Elizabeth Sparkle.
Sparkles?
Elizabeth Sparkle. Lizzie Sparkle. That's her name. That's what
And
they
you
call
gotta,
her.
you gotta take the spinal fluid. I
Yeah, you got to
guess.
take the spinal, like 7 days of spinal fluid out of her back. So, but Sue takes an extra day, goes, lives out that
Partying.
day, comes home, and switches bodies. And when
It's
Lizzie,
it's the motorcycle guy, right? She brings him
Yeah.
home.
yeah,
And she takes the extra day because so it's
She's
7 days you have to stabilize. That's one of the rules in the thing, right? So you stabilize, and without enough spinal fluid after the 7th dose, I mean, you can't stabilize without it, and an 8th day would be too much. So she ends up fishing a little dose thing out of the trash can that she threw in there, taking that extra day, using it so that she can go back and hook up with a motorcycle guy.
right.
But you see that like her nose is bleeding, like her body
It's
is
starting to break
rejecting
down.
itself because of the not having the stabilizer.
Right. So when she does stabilize and Demi Moore wakes up, her finger, like Demi Moore's finger, looks like a rotted old.
It's like a
woman's
witch
finger.
finger.
Like a
She's
witch's
100
finger, yeah.
years
Yeah.
old,
Yeah.
but just in her finger.
Just in her finger.
Mm.
And so she calls the company and she was like, "Look, there's been an accident. Like I think she may have taken a little bit too much time. What do we do here?" And the voice in their line is like, "Look, you can end the simulation. Or you can end the game now, and it's over, or you can,
I don't think he says this yet. I don't
You don't
think
think
that
so?
was even a question.
or
at
does
this
he say
point.
that like what's taken?
He says
'cause
what's
taken can't
cannot
be regained."
Yes.
And it's like an it's very gray. Her finger is very gray. The arthritis is very real.
Yeah.
So we should say that early when she gets out of the hospital, she has this interaction after the car accident. That Lizzie has this interaction with this guy named Fred, who is like definitely not in her league. Like he is very nerdy. He gives her awkward and
Yeah.
gives Lizzie his phone number, and of course she just kind of brushes it off. Well, now that she kind of is starting to question her own beauty and her own worth, she decides to take Fred up on this opportunity to go on a date. And
But that's way later when she does it the second time. You're
isn't
jumping
that
way
isn't
ahead.
that when she
So
sees it? Isn't that the thing with
that's when her arms have to be covered to go on
it's
the date.
arms. I thought it was the
it's too-
finger.
Here, let's just brush through this. So basically what's happening is Elizabeth Sparkle is being pushed out by
Yes.
Sue, and Sue is putting her junk, her clothes, her shoes in a box. She's building a wall to hide Elizabeth, and she's partying. She's destroying her house. She's taking the big picture of her away that was like a big centerpiece of her foyer or whatever. She's hiding everything that was Elizabeth Sparkle, and she's destroying her house, not taking care of her body, partying, all this stuff. And so as she's abusing it more and more, every time that Elizabeth wakes up and switched back, she sees that her world's being destroyed, and she's like, this is not part of the deal.
Right.
This is not what I signed up for. I wanted to live this young life and experience all this stuff, but at what cost? And it's costing her body, costing her her house. Things are falling apart. And so the next scene, what happens to make her do the extra use of the substance?
She's gonna do the New Year's. I think it's when she gets that.
I think it's
the-
her
the New
career
Year's Eve.
is the New Year's one is at the very end, but her career is really
Yeah.
starting to take off, and they need her to do all these like doing the cover of Vogue,
Appearances and stuff.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's just basically like, a little extra time won't hurt her. And she does like what, an extra week or month or something? It's some time period, which is
It's a
way
long
over the
time.
7 days. And then when she finally does wake up, this is when like isn't her legs and her arms or her body is like,
she basically looks like
half her-
Two-Face. Like
it's Two-Face.
Yeah,
yeah,
there you
half
go,
of
yeah.
her is very old.
and she's mad. She's
big
just
mad.
like,
And
obviously.
her
And
leg
this- you're right.
gets stuck.
Oh my god!
the-
And I
the-
gotta tell you, as a guy who has had surgery on his quadricep and has had knee surgeries, watching her like try to get that knee to work,
Oof.
I was like,
yeah.
I've been there. It's not that bad
Another-
for me, but I've been there. Like that is
another
gnarly.
total the horror gross out moment and the tense, like with the music playing and not knowing. I thought she was gonna like snap her leg off or
Oh, yeah.
something.
Yeah,
You know, it's,
right.
you're sitting there wondering how is this gonna be good. She pops it back into place. But she
Well, I did
then
want to
just-
say we kind of did gloss
Yeah.
over the date thing, and I do think that there's a very poignant part of this where
Yeah.
she's trying to get ready. She's very excited about this date. She gets herself put together, and she looks amazing.
Yeah.
But then she looks at herself in the mirror, and she looks at Margaret Qualley's body.
Well, this is the problem. Her billboard has been replaced
with Margaret Qualley.
with Sue's billboard.
Right.
And so now every time she's like getting out of the bathroom to get ready and leave for the date, she has to walk out and see it. And she keeps popping back in the
to
bathroom,
change something. Like,
redoing her makeup.
she looks at
covering up her body.
she
with
does
a
look at
scarf.
Margaret Qualley's lips, right? And she starts to do
Yeah.
her makeup kind of like Margaret Qualley's makeup. Yeah, she covers up her chest because her chest isn't as voluptuous as Sue's
Yeah.
chest. So then she ends up skipping the date because
Yeah.
her anxiety kicks in so hard that she just cannot get it together, and she
Mhm.
ignores Fred's text.
All I could think of Fred
Um,
was he was the substance's Ned Ryerson.
I thought
Yeah,
the
that's
same
exactly
thing.
what- yeah.
The
It's exactly
same
right.
thing. Yeah, that's
100%.
exactly
It-
right.
I think it's interesting too, right? To the idea that like, but we only want to impress the people we want to impress in a sense. Like maybe
Sure.
especially early
Yeah.
on, like he wasn't like good enough early on. Who cares if he thinks I'm hot? And then,
But
like,
then he was the
on
only
the
one.
way
But she,
down and like whatever. Yeah, it's just
wait, this
interesting.
to me has to be social
He's
media.
the human embodiment
Right.
of comic book conventions.
Oh,
Mm.
When
That's
you're an
true, too.
They seem
A-lister,
to have it together a little
Yeah.
more than
when
that.
you're an
Some of us do.
A-lister, you know, your Robert Downey Jr. is not going to go to Comic-Con.
he's gonna go to San Diego.
Well, he'll go to San Diego,
Sure, yeah.
but
Yeah,
he's
right,
not
right.
going to do photo ops. But
Uh-uh.
all
Yeah.
of a sudden, it's been 15 years, and you're like, maybe I'll do a Comic-Con.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
And now you can
Yeah.
do Sylvester Stallone at a Comic-Con, right?
Yes,
That's a great point. Yeah. So to me, I was thinking too, it was a commentary on social media to where like, oh, I don't feel good about myself. Let's take pictures for 20, 50, 100 pictures and post them so I can get those likes. He was her version of getting
Yeah.
likes, and I need that validation, and no one's giving it to me, but this guy will, and so it will give her that dopamine rush.
Right.
But she's so self-conscious that it's not good enough. So she ends up cooking and making this big feast and this big mess and just
and gorgeous
gorging.
herself.
Yeah.
And so Margaret Qualley goes to one of her tapings, and all of a sudden this lump pops on her ass, and it's not like a pimple, it's like a bulge under the skin of
Pops out
something.
growth
And
of-
and I thought, I was like, oh, okay, she's gonna eat that piece of quiche, and then that piece of quiche is gonna show up on her ass. This scene is inspired. If you've never seen Videodrome starring James Woods, I highly recommend it. It is body horror to the
Yeah.
nth degree by David Cronenberg. There's a whole
Yeah.
scene that is very similar to this.
This is phenomenal.
Where
when she's pushing
Margaret-
it up and around.
Margaret Qualley
Out of
reaches-
her belly button.
Yeah.
reaches into her belly button and like starts digging around inside of her stomach,
Yeah.
and pulls out this giant undigested turkey leg.
Which is again why you can't take it literally, because those things don't connect. There's no
Yeah.
way. And how would you
She-
get in there?
She also
I mean-
wakes up after this, so this may very well be.
That's true. That's true.
full-on
It
dream.
could be a dream. That's true.
Yeah, there are multiple
also
points in this
this mo-
movie where I'm not entirely sure if it's actually occurring.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
there's
Right. Right.
but this movie blurs reality and fiction, and that's the other thing too, which is interesting about it, because when she wakes up from things and it's a nightmare, I'm not so sure it's a nightmare. I'm thinking it's her subconscious like memory of
Yeah.
not quite being able to remember what the other one did.
Oh,
And that's
okay.
why I think they're
okay.
I think they're connected, but it's still like dreamlike in a way, but then it keeps you guessing what is real, what is not. So, which really helps in a fantastical movie like this, that weird stuff happens. It keeps you guessing. Like, was that really real? Was she imagining it? Is she going crazy? That kind of thing.
Right. So yeah. So now Sue is about to get the New Year's Eve ball, like the
But-
countdown to New Year's Eve.
Sue won't be around for New Year's Eve,
Right.
Elizabeth.
It'll be Elizabeth's
according to
time.
the calendar.
Right. So now Sue basically puts Elizabeth on ice. Like she is constantly, she's overblowing the whole thing. The injection site in Elizabeth's back is getting gnarlier and more infected and gross, and she's running out of fluid because the only way to recharge the spinal fluid is you have to be asleep for 7 days or whatever. You have to be awake for 7 days. I guess for
you have to be
Elizabeth, you have to be awake for 7 days to get the recharge. So Sue realizes she doesn't have a choice. She has to go back under, but she has done so much damage to Elizabeth. We don't know what Elizabeth looks like at this point.
I think also she's not only worried about the damage, she's worried about what is this lady going to do,
the repercussions
when she wakes up, and like, will she ever get to come back? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. So this is one of the things that I wanted to talk about a lot, because it takes a lot of time and mental capacity to be put under this level of prosthetics. And if you're putting Demi Moore under this, like, that's a lot to endure. And I'm not trying to make light of it, because it's hours upon hours of sitting in a makeup chair with people messing with your face or pulling your hair.
It's a full body.
She is put. That's a full. This isn't just her face. Like, this is a full body suit that she is wearing. Again, I loved this so much because it's not CG. It is practical. Yeah. These are practical effects. It's
phenomenal.
Incredible.
It's really good. So it's been 3 months.
Yeah.
I mean, when she took those jars out, when she gets so fed up and she's like, I'm not switching back, and she brings these mason jars in every container and just starts pulling spinal fluid out into dozens of jars. I'm like, oh my God. And you just know when Demi wakes up, it's going to be crazy.
And when she does, it is
it's crazy.
Grotesque. Her, she looks like an ogre. I don't know. I mean,
a monster.
This is
This is very
it's
like
just the aging
all
process,
hunched
Joe.
over.
I don't know that you should shame her.
Oh my God, that's not what I mean. I feel like this is exaggerated a little bit.
Yeah, it's like she's not just it's not her
real
posture.
Monster.
She's like she's a hunchback. Like it's very
like an elderly woman who is
pronounced.
Approximately 130 years old with like crippling osteoporosis and
If you were to put the woman from Barbarian against Demi Moore now, it's like, well, they look pretty similar. Like,
the woman from Barbarian would be a catch.
That's true. And what I appreciate about this,
and she's a good person. That's the thing that
she was
missing.
the victim.
Yeah.
She was the victim.
She is
in all
not
of that.
the monster, Joe. That is what you.
That's why I called her the woman and not the monster. What I appreciate about this is they don't shy away from everything. Like, you see a prosthetic vagina in this movie, and it's
the boobs, the pancake boobs that are got a huge reaction.
You know what I thought,
Joe,
was
I don't know. That's just groundbreaking. Lots of men have prosthetic vaginas.
That's
you're not wrong. Their closet.
You're not wrong. But I do what I liked. Not what I liked, but I thought was very interesting about the boobs is the skin but the implant was what was like making them look so weird.
Sure. It was not just like an old person. I mean, again, it's so over exaggerated the way that they make
but
everything.
I'm saying, like,
and
the way
when she's flopping around,
the way the implant was still like the perfect boob, right? But it was like everything around the implant had disintegrated. It was a very
it's whatever you're into, Joe.
That's true.
I would call them the perfect boobs, but
a perfect boob is expelled later in the film.
It really is. And
oh man.
So
put that thing in my pocket, take it home, man.
Where was that popcorn bucket? That's what I want.
That's what we need. The substance popcorn bucket.
That's the Slurpee cup.
That is the Slurpee cup.
Comes in a syringe.
She calls them. At this point, she's like, I am done. We have to end this.
Yes,
she calls the place. And she's like, I am ending the experiment. He's like, okay, you can come get the
termination goop.
So and the way I love the way that, because again, it's so unrealistic. She could barely get out of a chair. But when she's
thought
like
that the whole
rushing
time,
around like a little
she's
gremlin,
running around at full speed. She throws Margaret Qualley like through a glass table.
It's hilarious, right? And that, again, that's why you cannot having seen the movie, you know you can't take any of this literally. That's the whole point. It's so fantastical. It's so crazy.
Right.
But she's like rushing around, pushing people all the way, and the guy is like the neighbor guy that we don't need
Oh
to
my
get into,
God,
but he's
dude,
just like,
that guy is
oh
kind of
no,
one of my
Joe, I
favorite
shouldn't have
parts of
said
the
it.
movie. I'm just saying, like he's so awkward and gross to Margaret
Oh, he's
Qualley.
so when he comes dancing in the people, and he's like, "Come on, are you ready? Let's party."
So gross.
So cringe.
And
But
then
anyway, but I love when he bumps into her and she looks at him like, "Rah!" and he's like, "Ah!"
well, that's
goes back
this.
into his
So
room.
this is there's 2 giant makeup effects in this movie.
Yeah.
This is the first one where it's
Yeah.
Demi Moore's. It's definitely her in this gear.
Oh yeah,
And then we'll get to the second one later.
it'll be fun to
Monstro
compare.
Elizasue.
Which I thought was
when
great.
Demi Moore is 130.
Yeah.
You say,
Yeah.
like, this is what she looks like at 130. This is what they thought she'd look like, and we'll
Right.
get all those
I
comparisons.
like it when you get those comparisons.
Yeah,
Yeah, but so
yeah.
she gets back with the medicine, you know, and it's like she does like the Pulp Fiction thing, right? It's
Mhm.
that's what it
Mhm.
reminded me of. You take the big syringe. It's this. Was it black? Or
It was
was
black.
green?
Yeah,
It was black,
Yeah.
right? So because you're
It was
like,
the
oh,
ter-
this is
it
not
just
good.
said termination on it.
Yep, and you stab it into her chest and the heart, and she like reluctantly plunges it down.
Yeah.
but she eventually does it, and then after
She immediately regrets it.
she looks at her sleeping, you know, beautiful body down there, and regrets it. Yeah,
And so she starts doing CPR. And I thought her arms were going to break. Like that's what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, I will say, and
Uh,
I know you can't apply all the logic from the real world, but like her old decrepit self gets
right.
a lot less decrepit when it needs to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we just said all
Yeah,
that. Sorry.
yeah.
But it's no, it's fine. It's just we were saying it's hilarious. Like she's running around
Yeah.
pushing into people. It's funny. It's just funny.
I will
it's
say,
crazy.
you know, obviously we've been talking about this movie for a long time, and it is kind of a long movie. One of the
It's a
few
little too long,
times
but all right.
that I was going, I guess this is it. I guess this is the end. And then it
Yeah.
kept
Yeah.
going, and I was not disappointed.
Yeah,
I
no,
was
no.
okay with it.
There were
you
all
can
kinds
mix
of
her
there
up.
were all kinds of moments where I was like, "Oh, we're going to oh, nope. All right. We're going to keep going."
But
Yeah.
so she wakes her up, and
now they're
and both of them exist in
This
the
is
same
what makes
plane,
me think
which
they're
is
2 different people. Because if they have a shared consciousness, they're
well, I think it was split. You're not supposed to, and I think that's
Right.
why you could probably go a little crazy. It's split, but it's like this should not
This
be
is not
existing
supposed to
simultaneously.
occur.
right.
Yeah,
And then there is a
Fight?
knockdown,
A
fight?
drag out,
When she
disgusting.
Sparta kicks her.
Yeah,
When she
disgusting.
Sparta kicks her through a table. I
Sue
just
is
was
very
lost
strong.
it.
There was a woman sitting next to me, and when we get to the mirror scene, I was like, "This woman's gonna throw up." Like, there's no doubt in my mind. I could hear
Oh
like
no.
this from this. I was like, if she pukes on me, I'm gonna be pissed. So Margaret Sue takes Lizzie into they're fighting in the bathroom, and she just starts ramming her face into this mirror, and they don't cut away for anything.
She's
They
a bloody
they
mess.
show you what will happen to your face if you get like smashed
Mhm.
in the head with a mirror. And she is just gushing blood all over the place. Margaret Qualley Sue pulls Lizzie back into the living room. Sparta kicks her like through a table, and then starts beating the shit out of her.
and the blood in her body leaves and
Yes.
enters her carpet. Like it's just a pool, and it never stops running. That whole scene, blood is just coming out more and more
Every time she kicks
soaking
her.
the carpet up. But it just like keeps going, and she steps back and she realizes what she's done. Like this is the moment where she's like, "But wait a minute, that was my feeding bag.
Right.
That was like that." You know, now that she's dead, she can't get the stabilizer. Like this is it.
Yeah, and even the guy, I think the guy on the other line is like, "Yeah, that's it. Like there's you need that stabilizing fluid," because she does go to pull some out, but it's like
Oh, it's so gross.
it's like
Black
gray
and-
and goopy, and it's
Yeah.
not.
Didn't she take it too? Because she had to. That was at like the very end of her supply or something, where
Something.
it was gross. So she takes the stuff and she has.
I think
to
that's
use
the
it
moment
'cause
where
it's
she
like, well,
realized she's gone too far. She goes
Yeah,
and she had to.
she
go
goes
back
to take
switch
more
back.
out,
Yeah.
and it's just this kind of like, it's like she pulled out
dry.
a scab. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, it's so nasty. But now, so it's like, okay, well, let's do one last thing. Let's go to New Year's Eve. I'm sure that will be great.
So she goes,
As
and
long
it's,
as she has teeth, it should be fine.
Yeah, and ears that aren't falling off.
yeah.
Yeah.
So she goes, and things are okay in the beginning,
Yeah.
and then they're not okay. Like Matt said, she pulls a couple teeth out and her nails are coming off, and
Oh, the pulling out. I mean, one falls out and then she goes to the mirror to inspect them, wiggles one loose, and it comes out.
pops right
And then
out.
she's yanking them out.
Yes.
Just that smile with the gap in her teeth.
Yes.
Like it's
I was telling someone about this, and she's a dental hygienist, and she was like, "That's not real. Like that's not how teeth look." And I was like, oh, "Okay, well,
wow.
fine.
What?
You could bring
Wait a
your
minute,
own."
everything in this movie was not real?
Well, yeah, it's one
Oh.
thing for us to be like that, but if somebody whose job it is to work on teeth, and she's like, I mean,
This is like how
that's
I am
not-
when the movie's all set at a concert, and I was like,
That's
no,
exactly
Yeah,
right. That's
right.
exactly
not
right.
at all.
Oh, don't get me. Stop reminding me of that movie.
Oh man. So she was like, she realized
she has to get out of
She has to
there.
get out of there. She gets back to her apartment. I do like the scene where Dennis Quaid is like, "Pretty girl smile," and she gives her like
Oh,
the
it's-
non-toothy smile. He's like, "There it is."
Yeah,
But
yeah,
she's
yeah.
surrounded by like old
Old
gross
white
men.
men. It's old,
Yeah.
old corporate
Yes,
gross
exactly.
guys. And again, they're so blinded by their lust for young, beautiful women that they can't clearly see. None of them can see that something's wrong, and they don't care.
Right. They don't care. They don't care.
And then they see a bunch of showgirls go by, and they start chasing them like, ooh, and they start
with their
it's so-
with their boobs and asses
Yeah.
out, and they were just, like puppy
Yeah.
dogs chasing a car.
yeah.
So she goes back to her place and she realizes maybe they can salvage this by using the substance again.
I
It
knew
says
this was
it's
gonna
Oh,
happen.
I knew something was gonna happen. I didn't know
couldn't,
what.
Like, 'cause I'm like, they're gonna have to clone a clone. They're gonna have to do something. Like, what is this gonna mean?
Yeah, if you've never seen Multiplicity,
Yeah.
never clone a clone.
Never clone.
So and even on the syringe it says one use only, like initial
it's
use
not
only.
like once you open it, it's like opening a thing of pepperoni that can sit on the shelf. But once you open it, you have to refrigerate. You can't just
Yeah,
leave it
well, I
out.
don't think
You know,
it's that. I
preserved.
think it just says
That's what I was
you can
thinking
only
the
use it
whole
one
time.
time.
I think it's
It's like pepperoni.
Well,
I think it's a
that doesn't-
combination of it said use it once. It's also been sitting out
sitting out.
for at
Oh,
this
okay.
point months. So like, did it need
Yes,
to be
yes, yes.
refrigerated? Who knows? But I'm sure it's got an expiration date, and it's
Yeah, it looked
Yeah.
unstable.
Well, and
Whatever.
now
It did not
she's-
look like it used to.
She's doing a substance of a substance, a clone of a clone.
Yeah.
You guys said that. Whatever.
Yeah.
I'm catching up.
Oh, are you on delay?
is buffering.
Yeah. So she does
So
it.
she
and
does
we
it,
get another.
And initially it looks like it's gonna work.
It's a POV shot again, so it's
is.
like it
You're like,
opens its
okay,
eyes.
it all looks-
but it's a little weird. The POV is a little hazy and
Not
weird.
only when Demi Moore did it, it was one eye. When Margaret Qualley did it, there were
Yeah.
multiple
Oh, it
eyes.
opened up.
Yeah,
There were a
different-
bunch of eyes, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh
Oh,
no.
jeez.
So
And she goes to the mirror the same way,
she goes to the mirror, and then
brushes it off.
this is where I thought the movie was going to end. Is
sure,
she
yeah.
kind of peeks over, and it's a monster. Like
If it
there's
was
no
a
other way to
Black
describe it.
Mirror episode, this is where it
That's-
would have ended.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
That's not what we
And
got
she
going on
peeks,
here.
No,
But
she
now
peeks over
this
again,
monster-
and
But if you were to see Sloth from the Goonies compared to this, you'd be like, I'd hit it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this monster
Well,
is
I did think it had a very old Joe Merrick Lynch Elephant Man
yeah.
look, and like the breathing
Yes.
sound was really similar to that. I
But
mean,
this
it's
thing
more
has ears and
of a monster than not
Yeah.
that Joseph Merrick was a monster.
yeah.
I'm not
this
saying
definitely has like
that.
an.
But there's ears on top of the
You're
head.
just saying
and,
that
like
he
things
was
are
an
very
animal.
You've got
Not a human.
Yes.
you've got
Yes.
Demi Moore's face.
Oh,
like
yeah,
on
Elizabeth Sparkle's on the
Yeah.
bottom
the
of this
back,
thing.
and like that was the most like. Of course, this thing is grotesque looking, but
But see,
that
you
that
could
part
tell
was
that head-
unnerving.
in that head, I felt like kind of knew what was going on. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that was Elizabeth's. But if she's dead in the other room, that's why I think they share consciousnesses too.
I think
because she's
see,
freaked out and
And
aware.
that's definitely Demi
Her-
Moore's face. We get that big
Yeah.
time at the end of the movie.
She was, like,
Consciousness is
reborn.
all split up and
Yeah.
freaking out.
And she even instead of it was an interesting commentary where instead of using this creature pops out, and it is a creature. It's a creature feature to the nth degree. But I don't think the creature totally realizes what she looks like, because she goes and puts on Margaret Qualley's
But
evening
that's
gown.
that's like plastic surgery, right? When they just go
I
so
think that's true.
far.
It's like inverse body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
Yes. But instead of using
Is it, or is it just body?
Well, I guess most people.
Well,
Body
right.
dysmorphia is normally you
I see
think
what
you
you-
look worse than you do, and so I feel like this creature thinks she can still pull it
Yes.
off.
I
Yeah.
I
got
think
you.
that's the way that when people have body dysmorphia and they just keep making their lips bigger
Right.
and bigger and bigger and their jaws weirder and weirder, and then they go like, okay, finally I'm getting somewhere. And
Yeah.
everyone else is going, you look kind of weird, man.
So she puts on, but what I do think is interesting, instead of using Sue's photo shoot picture,
Mm.
she super glues Demi Moore, Lizzie's picture
Yeah.
on her face.
I
do
did think that was interesting too. I do too.
So she goes down to the ball. I do think it's
yeah.
funny. Like they make this big deal out of the New Year's Eve bash, and there's what 300 people in the theater.
What's being
Like
televised?
I was thinking like
but-
Times Square and all that
yeah,
stuff.
I
but
was thinking the
like,
same
this-
thing. Like
there's-
this is
there's
not
nobody
what
here.
a New Year's Eve like live show
Yeah,
would look like.
right.
The dancers all have their tits out,
Yeah.
so
They
that
did. I
seems-
guess that's true. That's true.
I don't know what
Um,
channel this is for.
But I would like to
Uh,
subscribe.
Spice TV.
Yeah.
There's
If they're gonna bring
reference
out
for our
mutant
older audience.
monsters
But
like
the point,
that,
the
hell
point
yeah.
is, this monster shows up with a paper printout of Elizabeth's face on it, and they are none the wiser. Like that's what's so crazy and
Yeah.
Oh, they're
fantastical about
they
this
are the
movie.
wiser. That's a dream sequence. Her walking
her
down that
walking
hallway. They're like, "You're
in.
so beautiful." That's all
Yeah.
fake.
Yeah, but she goes through the back and like still goes
But,
on
like,
stage, and
nobody
Nobody
sees
sees
her.
her. She
The-
kind of
nobody sees her till she
walks
out.
and all the
Okay.
stuff where she's being seen is a flashback to the beginning when she's remembering she
Okay.
got her when she got her star on the Walk of Fame.
Right.
And so,
Right.
because I was thinking the same thing, I was like, but people would see that she's gross and
I thought that was the commentary on like how fake she was. Like, oh, she has a piece of paper, and that's enough to fool people because they're that stupid. And anyway, but okay, that makes sense. So she gets on stage for real.
Yeah, and everybody just kind of stops. And,
They freeze.
yeah, and she's like, "Thank you." You know, she can't really talk, but you're
she's
trying
like,
to.
thank you.
Yeah,
like
right.
she's
Because her
all
mouth
like,
is like on the side of her
Yeah.
face, and she's got
It's-
another like bottom row of teeth like on her chest. And then she starts what you think she's gonna throw up, and she does, but she
does.
pukes up a boob.
Yeah,
as one
and,
does.
And now, as one does, and now the
and when that woman stood up and screamed, I laughed. It was
Oh,
so
yeah.
well,
funny.
this
I
this
liked
is
it.
now very much like the elephant, right?
It's like
this is kind
yeah.
of like the elephant.
Frankenstein.
Oh, yeah.
and
Like
Frankenstein.
I
all
thought
of that
she was
stuff.
gonna start singing "Putting on the Ritz."
And they start attacking her. Like they are calling her a monster, and they're doing this. They ended up beating her so bad that her arm comes off, and
Yeah, her
she
arm
just
kinda ripped
starts
off.
spraying blood, like
It's
all
crazy.
like Kill
Oh.
Bill, like
Could you imagine filming that scene? Because it's practical.
It's all
This is what we complain
practical.
about in movies is blood's always CG because it's easier to clean up and everything. This is practical
No.
fake blood spewing everywhere. The place is a mess. People are getting hit in the face. Like you can tell Dennis Quaid was like trying to be able to breathe when it's hitting him in
Yeah.
the face. Like
it looked like a fire hose worth of blood.
It was
Like,
insane.
that- it was
Just
crazy.
insane.
It's like Dead
Yeah.
Alive. I mean, it really did feel like
it was that much.
Yes. Dead Alive is a great example. The
Yeah.
lawnmower scene. This is absolutely an homage to that.
That's Peter Jackson, right?
That is Peter
Mhm.
Jackson.
Isn't
Yeah.
that crazy?
And
to think that
Charlotte Copley.
Oh,
He's in he's-
Coldplay.
Charlton
Copley.
Yeah. that guy. He's the main character in that.
Yeah.
So yeah, now everybody is like drenched in blood. Sue kind of starts to get away. As she's walking away, her leg comes off, and because I guess her body's just had enough, and she splat. Oh, I guess we should say somebody cut off the top of her head,
Yeah.
and then another head kind of like
Yeah.
grows back out of it. And I remember sitting in the theaters being like, "Holy God!
Yeah.
I cannot believe." And like I said before, I've seen like some crazy right. Like usually on VHS, it's the video nasties, all that stuff was things that you would see from a renting it from a movie
Right.
store, never in a theater.
Yeah.
And the fact that I'm sitting
is
in a
wild.
theater
Oh.
watching this unfold is wild.
Man, everyone was just laughing and
Well, it's
What a
having a
time.
great time.
What a
It
yeah,
was
seriously.
the theater.
And
It's the
Joe-
theater. Go ahead.
You tell me, because so then her whole body sort of
Explodes.
disintegrates, except the face on the back.
Yes.
and then
it's-
when that starts crawling,
it looks exactly like the intestines from Dead Alive.
100%.
Like the
100%
way
it
it
does.
walked and
yeah,
everything.
the way
and-
that like it moved and squishes itself to like. Oh,
I think,
man.
and I think this scene is very poignant. I know
Oh, yeah.
it's in this fantastical, weird, grotesque world, but the fact that Lizzie's face crawls to her star.
Yeah, this is the inverse
she
or
knows.
whatever. It's a callback to
Right.
the beginning.
Well, it's all she wanted, right? It's all she
Yeah.
wanted was to be on that Walk of Fame. And so
And over time, as it
it degrades and it
and
gets
then people
broken.
started,
People are
and the guy that drops the food and cleans it up and smears it
kind
everywhere.
of cleans it up.
Well,
Yeah,
right, but then like whatever, and just walks off, and so she goes back there.
She looks
and
up
then,
and she's looking through the palm trees and the stars. There's shooting stars, and what's left of Lizzie disintegrates into like this red goop, and then there is it's there all morning, and then when the guy kind of walks, he's cleaning the street basically and doesn't give a fuck of what is on the star, but just wipes it away, and Lizzie is gone.
The final
like that
act of unrealism. Because if you've ever been on Hollywood's Walk of Fame, I assure you, no one has.
There's no floor
ever
scrubber.
cleaned that
Yeah,
thing.
right.
Like when I see people like on the street, like next to the star, getting their picture taken, I'm like, that whole place smells like pee. I remember I was like, oh, I'm gonna find the Monkeys star on the Walk of Fame and do that, and then I get there and I'm like, there's no way I'm getting down on the ground here. It's disgusting.
Absolutely,
it's more
not.
disgusting than what we just saw.
You might be better off if you just would, like, as they're putting them into the ground.
Yeah.
Like, I have to get my picture taken as soon as they clear this out, because otherwise,
yes, if you do it on the first
gross.
day, as soon as the star in question leaves, you might not get tetanus.
Maybe. And that's how this ends. Yeah. So I mentioned Society and Screaming Mad George and all that stuff. Their Society is a precursor to this movie. There's a lot of Society is a wild, insane movie that has I'm just gonna say the word, and it's called The Shunting. When you watch it, if you decide to watch it, you'll know what I'm talking about.
You should watch it.
You should watch it. I do think it's worth watching. This ending sequence is absolutely an homage to that, in the way that they do the practical effects and everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm really happy that I saw this in theaters. I'm really happy that it got into theaters. I know it got a lot of buzz at Fantastic Fest. So I'm really glad that this got a bigger release. I don't know what it'll do monetarily, but just the fact that it's in a theater and people are able to see a movie like this is
better than Megalopolis.
Yeah, well, I'm glad
$4 million.
I'm glad I pulled I was like, do we really have to cover that? I don't really want to see that.
Oh, I want to see it. I'd like to see
it.
it. I don't care what it made or what. Like, I have to see this movie that Francis Ford Coppola sold his winery
to like, that's crazy.
And it made $4 million opening weekend.
Yeah.
I just it's going to be one of those. You know how we talk about movies like, was it Bonfire of the Vanities?
Bonfire of the Vanities is one that should
like all those different movies that we talk about. Ishtar, which I know Tom likes, but like, you know, all those major failures.
What was the one by the Wachowskis that they like?
Jupiter Ascending?
Jupiter Ascending?
Cloud
but I
Atlas.
don't think that. Oh, Cloud Atlas, I like though.
I think Jupiter Ascending was the one where they were like, we're going all out.
Like Dog
and it was
Boy
like,
or something.
Putting Channing Tatum and Dog.
But that movie didn't even do as bad as like $4 million on a Francis Ford Coppola movie. Like, there's no interest in that mainstream.
I mean, he's look, he's a great
When's the last time he
filmmaker,
made a
but he's
movie?
not a currently relevant one.
No, not at all.
Like, and
what, Bram Stoker's Dracula?
Yeah, I mean, it's not shocking that there wasn't a huge like, it would have had to have crazy buzz to get people to be like,
he would have had to have been like back at Godfather form,
right?
And
probably making a Godfather movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I get it. He's one of the great filmmakers, but he definitely doesn't have relevance. And this movie was not getting anyone's attention. It also got very bad reviews, very mixed reviews, at least. Just for the record, Jupiter Ascending made $184 million.
Oh my God, did it really?
I think Francis would love $184 million.
Sure
it had
would.
a budget of 176 to 210. I'm not saying it made money, but I don't think Megalopolis is going to get. It's probably going to end with $8 million or something.
And here's the other downside. Francis Ford Coppola, I don't know if you know this, was not the star of Yellowstone. So no one's going to pay him a bunch of money to put it on streaming.
Yeah.
Right.
Not the star.
He'll be lucky if this thing ends up on Crackle.
Well, You just wait till it
Oh.
gets its worldwide release. It's gonna crush.
Oh, Joe died.
Sorry,
Oh,
I
he's back.
hit my
Sorry, he's
table
good.
and my camera came off. Sorry.
So this was great. I'm so glad that
Yeah,
we
this is
covered it.
this
and
is
was able
so
to see it
great.
in
This is so
theaters.
great. Yeah.
It's a really, not only is it a cool body horror, just gross, suspenseful movie, but it has a lot to say, a lot to unpack. I think Demi Moore needs to get all her flowers for this movie. It's a phenomenal
I would be
performance and
interested
role.
to see if we start seeing more of her after this.
Sure,
Like if
yeah.
if people,
Yeah.
that happened with Marissa Tomei, and I brought her up earlier, but she kind of went away for a while. She did The Wrestler again, just
Yeah, it was after The Wrestler
and then
when
she
started
came
popping
right back,
up. Yeah.
Well, she was,
into, so I
Demi
do wonder.
Moore was just in The Feud, the
What's that?
Ryan Murphy show.
Oh, was
Yeah.
she? Okay,
Oh, I
good.
didn't know.
But I wonder if she's going to start getting horror roles.
Maybe.
She might
Maybe.
become a new
This seems like a
scream
weird
queen.
movie to do, to just dip your toe and then get out.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I just
it's-
wonder, because this movie is going to shine such a spotlight. Everyone's talking about it. I have to imagine she's going to pick up another interesting role.
Right.
Yeah, this is the
Yeah,
sort of
maybe
movie
she-
that even
back
if the
to-
general public doesn't flock to it, because they probably won't,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
the industry will see it and be like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, she can actually
do wonder-
Right.
things.
I do wonder if we'll see her in like A24 stuff.
Maybe.
Right.
Like,
I could,
instead
exactly.
of-
I think
yeah,
she's
yeah,
going to
yeah.
be more in that
Yeah.
world. Yeah.
That'd be interesting. But yeah, this was great. Go see it.
Yeah,
in the
this was
theater,
fun.
honestly. I know we say that all the
I
time, but
didn't know what to expect, and my wife, much to my amazement, loved it. Like she
Yeah.
really
Wow.
liked it. So
That's awesome.
because the whole time I was like, I'm like, I like this for what it is. Like it's fun, but it's not something I would ever like make a point to see. But it's doing what it means to do, and it's doing it well.
Yeah.
But I was spending the whole movie like, I wonder what my wife is thinking right now.
Will I be married
Yeah,
after
and,
this?
she was
have
like,
I pushed it too far?
And I told her when I was like, I know nothing about this movie except we should go in not knowing anything about this movie.
It's funny.
Yeah.
I did tell the group. I was like, look, I've seen this director's first movie. I know what that looked like. Just be prepared.
Yeah, and I told her, I go, but I
don't
think
know.
it gets gross. And she's like, okay. And she was like, no, that was good.
Nice.
So,
Yeah.
well, anyway, I guess that's it for this one. Let's go around the table and everyone can say where to find them.
This is Joe. You can follow me on the Twitter at JoeyButts BTTS21 and on Letterboxd at the same.
This is Kevin. Follow me on Twitter at Kevin R. Brackett.
Hey, this is Matt, and I have a podcast called Real Spoilers Patreon. And right now, to commemorate the 50th anniversary of Saturday Night Live, SNL, we're gonna
Saturday Night Live.
do kinda miss that day.
hold on. We're gonna go through all of the SNL movies.
We are.
So get over there, have fun with us.
You got like a t-shirt printing company or something?
I don't.
I mean, maybe. I don't know
Think
if you do or
so.
not. Maybe you.
Oh
Right.
crap! We're gonna have to
Have a
we're
sweet,
gonna have
sweet
to flag
t-shirt.
this video as explicit content. That Ravioli's drinking a beer.
That
Oh my
Ravioli's
God,
drinking
he
a
is
beer.
drinking. No, it's a root beer.
Oh
It's a root beer.
my
That
It's a root
one's
beer.
you're too late on that one. If you want that one, sorry, that's September.
I got it.
And this is Tom. You can find me on Twitter at Roger Kubert or on Facebook at facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. You can find the show online at facebook.com/Real Spoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group. And of course, don't forget Matt Basler's podcast, Real Spoilers Patreon. So that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, Lance, Lenny, and Rico start a pizzeria.
Get